The judges aren't going to always see it your way. And I mean, you see some of the worst, judging, you see, fights every single, weekend that are judged poorly. And so I never want to let it go to the judges. And if I can, I'm the only person that can do something about that.
How important is Topuria right now in terms of like carrying the star factor?
Disliking a guy that's, going out and knocking dudes out, he has the style that, attracts, fans, and very similar to the, Conor McGregor. He's kind of a clone of Conor. Like, it's almost like they're trying to trick us.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to Julian Erosa, one of the most entertaining fighters in the game, knockout artist, submission artist, and fought all over the world, doing what you do best. How's everything going, man?
Man, it's going fantastic. Thank you for having me on, brother.
So you fought the Contender Series, tough, the UFC, won titles around the world, fought in Cage Warriors. Which of those means the most to you personally, or is there a fight or a moment or a span of your career that stands out that really, like, it means something to you the most?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, I mean, all of my fights are part of my journey, so I really, they all are a piece of that, and I enjoy them to a certain degree. But the one that really stands out the most to me was when I got my job back with the UFC, fighting Sean Woodson on about a 3-day notice. Was the biggest underdog going on that fight, and I was his only loss. He was undefeated at the time. Was able to come back in the third round. Was probably down a couple of rounds, and was able to get a dart choke wrapped around his neck and take him out of there, and was able to get a bonus and get my job back with the UFC, and I've been doing good ever since. So that one was that fight because I had been cut for that twice from the UFC. But did the Ultimate Fighter, did Contender Series, and so I was at the point in my life where I thought maybe fighting in the UFC was probably not going to be a realized dream for me anymore, and was able to take that fight and get back in there, and I've got 12 fights since then, so it worked out pretty well for me.
I spoke to Andre Petrosky recently. He said winning in the UFC is better than any drug on planet Earth that you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
What does that feel like, especially when it's all on the line and not only have you won, but you've proven yourself, you're taking care of a family, it means way more than just that moment, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. It's an unreal feeling, and it's hard. It's hard to really describe unless you've been through it. Because people think that a lot of people that aren't super into MMA, or even people that are into MMA but don't fight, don't understand that. Yeah, there's only one guy that you have to beat, but it's so hard to beat a guy that doesn't want you to beat them, and they're trying to do the same to you. And we're all the cream of the crop in the UFC. So you're not going to get these guys that are going to fold easily. You're going to find a guy who's probably willing to die in there just like you are. So you got to put it all on the line. And when you can overcome that, it's unexplainable. It's crazy. It's all your dreams realized in that 1 second when you realize you won that fight. Especially when it's a finish, man. Because you're going in just fighting somebody, and then the next thing you know, if you're in the sequence of a finish, like your adrenaline's going, you're already thinking, man, am I about to win this fight? And then as soon as you realize the ref stopping it, that second is undescribable.
You thought about walking away for a while, right? Could you tell us about that? What made you come back, and how you feel about the decision?
Yeah, you mean I would say probably that right before I fought, well, even before I fought Sean Woodson, I did fight AJ Bryant on a smaller show in Washington State. But after I was cut the second time in the UFC, my record was 1-4. Cut for the second time, had done Ultimate Fighter, Contender Series, all basically everything you could do to get in the UFC. And I thought the road in the UFC was going to be over for me, and so I was close to packing things up and going back home to Washington. And then COVID hit, and I just said, well, you know what, like the country's shut down a bit, so let's just hang out here and keep training if I can. And we'll see what happens. And I took one fight outside the UFC, and luckily enough for me, after that, that's all it took. And since the shutdown, the COVID virus, caused people not to make the fight. I mean, in the UFC, right when COVID happened, the shutdowns happened, it was like every week there was like 3 or 4 fights that would fall out because guys couldn't pass COVID, couldn't get in from other countries. And so my manager just said, "Hey, like stay ready, get your medicals done," and and that just that little bit of hope that my manager told me or gave me just by telling me to keep my medicals ready, stay ready. You'll be able to, a fight is gonna fall out, and you could be that guy that could be there for it. And so, and sure enough, it worked. It worked out for me. But yeah, just a little bit of hope that he gave me by telling me that is what kept me going during that time and got me back in.
You were on Tough, which is, I think, kind of those moments, those classic ones go down in MMA history. What were some of your highlights from that? Oh, and I read in an interview or saw in an interview you used to get your balls out just to mess with people, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, being in the house, you don't have, your cell phone, you don't have TV, so you're kind of just hanging around a bunch of other dudes, and like, you know, uh, when you get around a bunch of guys, that are slightly immature to a certain degree. I mean, we're all fighters, so we're very easygoing, and we kind of try to get away with just making each other laugh all day. I mean, that's really our entertainment, and so we would do stuff like that. I mean, it turned out to be one of probably the most popular Ultimate Fighters. It was right when Conor McGregor was getting popular, and it was him versus Uriah Faber, Europeans versus Americans, and so I enjoyed every bit of it. There was a lot of guys on the even in the show that that I was on, a lot of guys that were complaining about not being home and not seeing their family and friends and stuff. I'm like, man, this is amazing. Like we're in Las Vegas in a mansion, basically a summer camp for fighters. Trying to chase the dream. Obviously, I think the Ultimate Fighter at the time was fun for me, but it's tough because like I said, you got to be, gone from your family and your normal schedule. I was gone for 7 weeks, but also you're really not getting paid. Like you're just kind of fighting for free. You're kind of fighting UFC caliber fights for free. I fought 4 times on the show and I didn't get paid at all. For the fight specifically, they were all exhibitions. So I was just basically fighting. I fought 4 times to get in the UFC. The whole contenders series is so much better nowadays because you can fight 1 time and get in the UFC from there. Ultimate Fighter, I fought 4 times, was 3-1, and I still had to win my first UFC fight coming off the Ultimate Fighter to get my contract with the UFC. So like after the Ultimate Fighter was done rapping and the finale was going on, I had to fight Marcin, and that fight they're like, hey, if you win this fight, you get contracted with the UFC. But if you lose, we're not going to give you a contract. So I've had to fight 5 times basically to get my contract versus the Contender Series where you only got to fight 1 time.
That's wild. That
Yeah.
reminds you perhaps why the UFC is maybe one of the only really profitable MMA organizations on the planet.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What was it like having peak Conor being a rival coach? I mean, just how sharp was he? Because his trash talk, even with Uriah, was pretty legendary. What was it like kind of being on the opposite team? Was it pretty funny?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very easygoing and I enjoy humor, and so like I enjoy like all aspects of it, and just them kind of chipping back and forth with each other was fun. But we're like I said, we were all kind of just bored. So like when we were around them, it was like everybody just like was looking for the entertainment within the groups of guys that we're hanging out with, and so it always seemed like the production would put Faber and Connor in spots for like a couple of minutes, like with awkward silences, to see if they would kind of chirp back and forth because they would be like, all right, everybody line up here. We're going to walk out. We're going to do the face-offs, or we're going to do the weigh-ins, or we're going to do this or do that for the production crew. And so they would sit us in the back ready to walk out, but they're like, all right, we're gonna sit here for 5 minutes. We'll walk out in 5 minutes when we're all ready. And I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, they're just having us stand here for 5 minutes, and then Connor would say something, and then Faber would say something back, and then they kind of chip back and forth. So I think there was a little bit of planning with the production of keeping them, in just random spots for a few minutes to have them chirp back and forth. And then, some of the other guys, some of the European guys would, chirp with Connor, and same with some of us over there as well. So it was fun. It was enjoyable. And, I was, slightly starstruck, at the time. I was a big fan of Connor. I actually thought when I heard about the coaches, I was kind of hoping I'd be on Connor's side just because I was such a big fan of his. But I was a big fan of Faber and all the guys at Alpha Male as well. So it didn't really matter to me exactly or which coach it was. I was just happy to be on the show. But for a little bit, I was like, man, I hope Connor's my coach. But I'm not a European, so. But he was a nice guy. We hung out with him quite a bit. So it wasn't always a rivalry. There was a lot of times where they would just come to the house and hang out with us, even if they were rival coaches. And get to pick their brains and talk to them. And they're all, every fighter's pretty down to earth.
Yeah, they seem like they have a lot of mutual respect. How's things with you at the moment? Because your last fight was super close. You're on a 3-fight winning streak before that.
Yeah.
You've got so much experience and so many epic highlights, lots of ups, lots of downs. You've lived it, man. How are you feeling about everything at the moment?
I feel great. Obviously coming off, I was kind of in the best. This is the best run of my, in the UFC that I've done. 3 first-round finishes against a lot of tough guys. Ramos, C-Rod, and Elkins. I put Elkins away in the first round, and that's a task that many haven't done. And so, I was kind of riding a high, and my manager reached out to me and asked me, a week after I fought Elkins, if I would be willing to fight in 4 weeks, or just was willing to mull that idea over. And I was like, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, maybe I should just go, rack up another fight, and because we were actually going back home to Washington for a month after Elkins fights, and I was like, let's postpone that for a second. I'll go fight again, and then we'll go home. And I think I might have been a little too enthusiastic about it. Early on in my career with the UFC, I'd taken fights without necessarily thinking about it. I would just be like, yeah, like they'd call me up. It wasn't like I never said no. I was always a yes guy. So, and some of my career has been, it's been detrimental to it because of doing that. And so I try to be a little more patient as of more recently, but I was on such a high from those 3 first round finishes and fighting in Miami on such a big card and getting Elkins out of there. It was just such a surreal feeling. And so I was like, you know what, let's do it again. And, got the fight with Melky, and Melky was a guy that I was, I'd seen fight, and he was a kid that I was, I thought would be a good matchup for me. And so, even though it wasn't, a full fight camp, I was just coming off of a long camp, so I was in shape, ready to go. And it was, it was a good, the only thing about the fight is I broke my orbital in it. And so halfway through the fight, I was seeing double, and it's the first time that's ever happened to me. And so it was kind of learning on the job to try to, push through that during the fight. And, it's, hats off to Melky because he's the one who caused my orbital to break. So it's not like it was a freak accident or something. It was something that he made happen, and I was just having to fight through it. And I wish I could have seen him a bit better in the second half of that fight. But like I said, hats off to him. He did a fantastic job, and I wish I could have got the win, but I got the bonus, or we both got the bonus, so that was nice.
Yeah, I mean, you've always hunted submissions or knockouts. You are a hunter, an entertaining fighter. I think the crowd loves it. Can you tell us about that mentality?
Yeah, man. I hear about guys all the time thinking about like playing fights out round by round, and I'm like, I never think about that. When the bell rings, I'm like, all right. I mean, I'll ease into it sometimes, but I'm always just thinking about the finish. I don't even think about the 5 minutes on the clock. Like some people are like, they'll look at the clock. You'll see it even in the fights. They'll look up sometimes, like how much time is on this round. I never even think about that. I don't care. I'm just like, all I'm thinking about is getting a finish and getting the guy out of there. Because you see it all the time now that, the judges make poor decisions. Even the Melky fight, I watched it back a few times, and it was a lot closer than I thought the night that it happened, because I thought I lost the fight after it happened, but I went back and watched it again, and I could see you could argue round 2 and 3 for me, but the judges aren't going to always see it your way, and I mean, you see some of the worst, judging. You see, fights every single weekend that are judged poorly, and so I never want to let it go to the judges. And if I can, I'm the only person that can do something about that. So that's why I'm always trying to hunt the finish, and also that's just kind of always been my style. It's I don't know if you're born with that mentality or if it comes over years and years of training and fighting, but I've always kind of had that that mentality and the ability to go after it. And I've never been just like a sit back and just let's try to win this fight by decision, because you never even know. I mean, you see some guys that clearly won by decision, like, I would have given 30-27, and sometimes you get Mike Lee or Chris Lee or Sal Giamato, and you're like, what the hell? How is this a split decision? This makes no sense. And then the wrong guy's winning, and so that's always been my motivation, is not to lose a fight by the judges when I could have done something about it.
Well, I don't know if this is a part of that, but that clip went viral. Paddy Pimblett said under today's MMA rules, you would have won that fight. He gassed out in that fight. What did you make of him coming out and saying that clip going viral, and him, being so honest about it?
Yeah, I respect Patty a lot. We've crossed paths quite a bit. And so, we realize nowadays, we're just the same kind of person. We're both guys chasing our dream, trying to provide for our families. And so I think he's just, back when I fought Patty, obviously he was a younger kid, and I was probably the first guy he ran into that, wasn't going to, quit or give up, and, gave him everything I had. And so, and I felt like I won that fight. A lot of people did think I won that fight. And so, I give him a lot of respect for coming out and saying that maybe he didn't fully admit that I won that fight, but gave definitely a good hint about it. So, I respect him for doing that. And, it doesn't change either one of our trajectories in our fighting career. It doesn't change anything about what's going on in our lives right now. And so it just shows the maturity of him to do that. And so I appreciate that for him. And like I said, me and him have crossed paths quite a bit. I've seen him in the gym, and he's come to Extreme quite a bit. And so we have nothing but respect for each other. We're rooting for each other,
How is things at Extreme? And you're still training at 10th Planet as well? Like, who do you train with nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the majority of my training is at Extreme Couture, and we got a big stable of guys over there, a lot of good featherweights. I train with Dan Ige, Kai Kamaka, Jeremy Kennedy, Cody Stamen. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I hate naming people because I'm going to forget other names of other guys that are there. But the great thing about Vegas and Extreme Couture is that you always get a bunch of guys that are always coming in. Like every other week, it always seems like some guys are coming in that are helping corner some guys on Contender Series, Ultimate Fighter, or just coming in to check out Vegas, check out the PI. So you get a lot of guys that are just coming in and out. And I feel like it's one of the only places that happens where, you'll see champions coming in and training with us, from all over the world, and you don't have to travel anywhere. If you live in Vegas, you get to take advantage of that on a regular basis. I mean, even walking to the PI, you get guys from all over the world that are just here training, taking advantage of the PI and everything that they do for us fighters. And so to see these guys, like, I don't have to travel to Australia. Guys from Australia will travel here and train with us. And so I can just wake up and go to train. And you never know what, like Patty, just the other day, Patty was, has been in and out of the Extreme, and I have to travel to the UK to go train with him. He just comes here and trains with us. So that makes it so good. And I would say I train a couple of days over at 10th Planet as well, but because those guys are just phenomenal grapplers, and it's always nice to mix it up and work on that aspect of fighting as well.
You fought on McGregor Diaz 1, which I think was kind of the peak in terms of stars, the UFC, just absolutely incredible. And there is a narrative now that we are missing some star power. I don't know if you subscribe to that. Topuria, in that sense, is quite important because he is probably the guy right now. And you saw Paddy get in the octagon with him. How important is Topuria right now in terms of like carrying the star factor?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, he's I can't imagine anybody disliking a guy that's, going out and knocking dudes out, he has the style that, attracts, fans, and very similar to the, Conor McGregor. I mean, a lot of people, they got similar tattoos on their back. Even it's crazy, it's almost like he's a kind of a clone of Conor. Like it's almost like they're trying to trick us. Like it's just Conor, but just in a different form, basically. And so, and he just it's crazy because I've always been a fan of Charles Oliveira. Like he's been one of my favorite fighters. But leading into that fight, I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is gonna be a good one for him. And for Topuria, made it look easy. And it's nice to have these guys that come up that aren't just gonna, it's not a Dagestani that's just gonna wrestle somebody down. You got Potan who's knocking people out. You got guys like, I mean, even Pantoja is such a fantastic fighter. I mean, he's brought such a new wave for the flyweight division, which is fantastic. And just showing off his skills. I mean, people, I can tell people get bored, just the casual fan. Like, I love watching, even Islam or, I mean, not even Islam. Islam's knocking people out too, but got guys like Khabib that, take people down and hold them down and control them. And I enjoy that because I'm a fighter, so I appreciate that and I respect that. But the casual fans, you can tell that they don't like that kind of stuff. So having a guy like Topuria go out there and do what he's doing against high-level guys is really drawing more eyes to the sport.
I don't understand why more casual fans don't just watch 4-ounce Muay Thai. Like, if
Yeah,
that's what
yeah, exactly. I think it's just like for whatever reason, just it being less popular. Like, obviously everybody knows UFC, and I noticed that you do a lot of ONE FC stuff, and that's like you want action packed, just watch that stuff. Those guys will get crazy.
I enjoy it, man. I enjoy it. There's some fun fighters over there. I was gonna ask you because I just made a video about this White House thing, America 250, and what I find really interesting, Daniel Cormier made a good point, because now it looks like we could see a ridiculous U-turn. John Jones comes out of retirement and does fight Tom Aspinall. You really have a British guy in the main event. What if Tom beats John? Can you really have a Brit beating an American on America 250 on celebrating America in the White House? That would be like a crazy narrative. But I just wanted to know what you think about the whole thing, who you'd want to see on the card, who you would want to fight if we're really going to stack it. Bring back Ronda Rousey, bring back Gina Carano.
Man, yeah, that'd be such a crazy card if they had it. And it would be interesting too if it was like a one-off. Like, obviously, like the Sphere was like a one-off. They said, but after I went to the Sphere fights, and it's like I could see them doing it again, but who knows if they would want to do it again or not. But they said it was going to be a one-off, so it's like one of those memorable cards that won't happen again. So doing like the fights at the White House would be absolutely insane. They would have to stack it. They would have to make it, the craziest fight card. They would have to have like guys like Sean Strickland, the most American type of guy. But it's like I always feel like the UFC, like on those like kind of cards, want to try to stack them to where Americans are winning, or like for wherever they're at. Like the Sphere cards, they want to have like they want to have the majority of the guys winning be Mexican because it was like it was Noche, and so like everywhere they go, I always feel like they try to stack the card with more favorites of wherever they're at. And so obviously if they had fights at the White House, they're going to try to stack it with Americans to win. So that would be very interesting. I mean, it'd be fun. I would love to fight on it. Obviously, as a fighter, you want to be on the biggest cards, and so that'd be great.
Opponent, if we're talking, I mean, there must be guys who are like legends who you almost want to fight before they hang them up, right?
I'm trying to think about who I'd want to fight. I would have to be. I for sure would want to fight a Canadian, just because it's always kind of like Americans versus Canadians. Like, I don't know. There's always been that little bit of rivalry, and I've already fought. I fought Hakeem Dawodu, and I fought Charles Jourdain, and those are more of the prevalent featherweights. Obviously, Hakeem doesn't fight for the UFC anymore now, but I think he got released. But I don't know. I mean. I think is there any other Canadian featherweights? I think that Kyle Nelson, he fights. He's a Canadian featherweight, so maybe someone like that. But it had to be someone from a different state or a different country. Like that's the number one thing. Like I don't know if there's any legends I can think of from other countries that I would fight that are still relevant right now. My mind's kind of going blank, but I would say I would just love to fight a Canadian. I would love to beat a Canadian on that kind of card. Just to put it to them.
They would never do it because I feel like they would need to promote the fact that they had a huge name. But I would love just once if the UFC went the WWE route and didn't tell anyone, and then you just heard their entrance music, like a Ronda or GSP, like
yeah, that would be awesome. Music. Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be like have a whole card like that where it's just like a mystery card, and then the only time is when they're walking out and you're like, what the hell? Or like it'd be so nice too, because like you could have that where like Ronda Rousey would walk out first and you're just like, who the hell is she gonna fight? Like, this is crazy. Yeah. and like, or have John Jones walking out. You're like, all right, who's it gonna be? Or Tom Aspinall, who's it gonna be? Yeah, that would be pretty sweet if that could happen. But then again, I think there's a thing to be said about people extending their careers too long. I think the UFC does a fantastic job of kind of not letting people do that too often. Like, cause I don't know if you were hearing about the whole GFL stuff when they had these cards that were like absolutely insane. It's like they have like 40 fights with like all these, like Rashad Evans is fighting on there. Like, what do you like? Vitor Belfort, Uriah Faber. These guys, where are they getting the kind of money that it would take to get these guys to fight? And no wonder that whole organization kind of fell off because, or it just crumbled because there's like it was almost too unbelievable. Like I couldn't even imagine them doing that, getting all those guys on that card.
Work is if I was sat in my mansion and I'm a Saudi prince or a crypto billionaire and I'm just bored and I just think, oh, I started watching Pride and the UFC 20 years ago. You just have some fun with this,
Yeah, but even though that like the GFL was trying to have this crazy like all these UFC vets on there, it's like how good are those fights really going to be? I mean, like it's cool to see those like legends, but it's like Vitor Belfort, you think he's not going to be his old self. You got Rashad Evans. He's not going to be his old. You're not going to have these guys that are doing the highlights. When you see them, your mind thinks about all that, and so you're like, oh, this is gonna be crazy. And then you start to think about it, like, yeah, how? I mean, it starts to becoming a little sad. I mean, even the last Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell fight that they had on that stupid card, it was like you almost felt bad versus being excited about the fight.
I know what you mean. I don't like it when they do old guy versus young guy. Like I didn't even watch Tyson versus Paul. I just couldn't do it. And
Yeah,
it seemed like I missed out. But for example, I think Masvidal and Cowboy both want to come back, right? I don't mind it if they face each other or they face a Robert Lawler, two guys the same age. Why not? So if those guys want to come, Cowboy on the White House card against someone like Masvidal might be fun,
Yeah, for sure. And also those guys aren't too far off, from when they were fighting. So it's not too crazy to think about those guys coming back. And I know Cerrone's been talking about wanting to come back sometime. But yeah, that would be something like that would be amazing. But they'd be even better if they did like you said, where they just you don't know who it is. They're just gonna come out and you're like, what the hell? This is crazy.
Mate, imagine if they finally signed Fedor.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. It's been great chatting to you. I'm going to wrap up with a little quick fire. So,
sounds good.
Who's the funniest guy in the UFC?
The Black Beast.
Who's the most annoying?
I would have said Patty back in the day, but I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, I'll just go with Patty. He's a good one.
Best hands?
What's that?
Best hands?
Topuria for sure.
Best dressed?
I would say probably Topuria as well.
Best fight IQ?
I would have said Demetrius Johnson from back in the day.
Coolest tattoos?
Oh, man. Tom Aspinall's got some nice ones.
Most underrated?
Juicy J.
Best fight IQ?
Best fight IQ? I think we already did that one. Demetrius Johnson from back in the day.
We already did that one.
Yeah, no worries. It's all good. It's all good.
Sorry. Best looking fighter in the UFC?
Juicy J.
Yeah. And who's the most interesting female fighter?
Most interesting female fighter. Oh man, I'll probably get a lot of flack for it, but I don't know. I would say, oh man, I honestly don't follow women's MMA that much. But I'll go with my girl, Misha Tate.
And if you could have anybody by your side in a street fight, who would it be?
Probably gotta go with the biggest guy. So I'll probably say like Tom Aspinall or John Jones, one of the big guys, because if there's like five guys, at least you have a shot.
This is the way. Who would you most like to have dinner with?
Probably John Jones, because I know we're gonna get into some crazy shit afterwards.
You're not the first person to say that. And finally, if you could fight anybody in any weight class, past or present, who would it be?
I want to fight the guy from UFC 2 with the boxing glove on his hand. I can't remember the guy's name, but I want to fight that guy.
This is before my time, man. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. This has been so much fun, dude. Juicy J, the man.
Yeah.
Respect.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
What's next? When are we going to see you back, do you think?
I think I just recently got cleared from my eye, so I'm just now. Today's actually gonna be the first day I'm sparring in about 7 weeks. So I'm thinking probably towards the end of the year. I still want to get one done this year. I would say probably around November or December would be ideal for me. But with UFC, it's kind of like when they can schedule you is when they can schedule you. It's never like a specific date, but I'm hoping for before the year's up.
As you said, you were submitting people like, beautiful Doris chokes. You were flying. So is there a name that makes sense for where you're at right now?
Man, I haven't even thought about it, honestly. I've been more focused on just getting back to healthy. I went home for a month, and it's tough because when you go home for a month, you're not training as much, and you're eating eating shittier than you normally are. And so, I got a little bit bigger. I came back and I was 190 pounds. So I've been more focused on getting my physique back, and then and getting healthy as well. So. I never really have names on my mind. It's more of just like getting back to fight shape and getting ready, and then anybody's available for me. So I'm down to fight anybody from the number one all the way to the bottom. So it don't bother me.
You're the man. Catch you again next year, hopefully. Cheers.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, bro. Have a good rest of your day.